As promised, we at Quavertv are excited to launch our latest segment, What If They Never Existed, where we dive into the lives of the people who shaped history, and imagine what the world would look like without them. And when we say we're doing it big, we mean big. To kick things off, we're starting with none other than one of the most notorious figures of all time, Adolf Hitler. Buckle up, because this is going to be a wild ride through history as we explore how different the world might be if he had never existed. Let's get into it. Imagine a world where Adolf Hitler never existed. No rise of the Nazi Party, no World War II, no Holocaust. How different would the world be? Without Hitler, would we still see the same power struggles, the same technological leaps, or the same cultural shifts? Let's dive into this alternate history and see what we can uncover. First, think about World War II. Without Hitler leading Germany into an aggressive expansion and launching the invasion of Poland in 1939, it's possible that World War II, as we know it, might not have happened. Germany was in economic chaos after World War I, crushed under the weight of the Treaty of Versailles. But without Hitler's charisma and extreme ideology, maybe another leader would have risen, someone less focused on expansion and more focused on rebuilding. Europe might have avoided a second catastrophic war, or at least delayed it. Without the Holocaust, the largest genocide in human history would be erased. 6 million Jews and millions of others, people who were targeted for their ethnicity, disabilities, or beliefs, would have lived. Entire families, communities, cultures, would still be here. The Jewish population, especially in Europe, might have flourished in ways we can only imagine. Global discussions about human rights, which were heavily shaped by the horrors of the Holocaust, would have taken a different path. Without that shock, would the world have been as quick to denounce racism and bigotry? Or would it have taken longer to confront the deep-rooted issues of prejudice? But it's not all peace and harmony. The power vacuum in Europe would still be there. The Soviet Union, led by Stalin, wouldn't have had to defend itself from a Nazi invasion. Without that threat, Stalin could have expanded his influence more rapidly across Europe, spreading communism earlier and more aggressively. The Cold War might have started long before 1945, and instead of a battle between Nazi Germany and the Allies, we could have seen a communist Europe much earlier, locked in conflict with the Western democracies. And what about America? The United States' involvement in World War II propelled it into superpower status. It emerged from the war with a booming economy and global influence. Without World War II, would the US have become the global leader it is today? Maybe not. America could have stayed more isolationist, focusing on internal issues rather than stepping onto the world stage. There might not have been the Marshall Plan to rebuild Europe, no NATO, no United Nations in its current form. The world's political landscape would look vastly different. Race relations also would have been impacted. The civil rights movement in the US was energized in part by the global fight against fascism and racism during World War II. The horrors of the Holocaust exposed the extreme consequences of hatred and prejudice. Without that example, would the world have been slower to confront racism? Would the struggle for civil rights in America have been as urgent? It's hard to say, but it's possible that the movement might have taken longer to gain momentum, or it might have looked very different. Now, let's consider the impact on technology and culture. World War II drove some of the most rapid advancements in technology we've ever seen: radar, jet engines, even the early development of computers. The race for technological superiority during the war also laid the groundwork for the space race and the Cold War arms race. Without Hitler in the war, those technological leaps might have been delayed. Who knows when we would have landed on the moon, or how long it would have taken for computers and the internet to become a part of our daily lives. Culturally, the absence of Hitler in the war would have shifted the entire course of modern thought. Many of the works of art, literature, and philosophy that emerged from the trauma of the war, Picasso's Guernica, the existentialism of Jean-Paul Sartre and Albert Camus, might never have existed. The global conversation about morality, evil, and human rights would be different. Would we have had the same reflections on the nature of humanity? Would we have understood the depths of human cruelty in the same way? And let's not forget fascism itself. Hitler wasn't the only fascist leader in the world at the time. Mussolini in Italy was already pushing his own brand of authoritarian rule, and without Hitler, Mussolini might have become the central figure of European fascism. Fascism could have spread more slowly or more broadly, without the immediate backlash caused by Nazi atrocities. Finally, think about the ripple effects. Without Hitler, without World War II, there would have been no reason for the reshuffling of global power that came after. Nations wouldn't have realigned in the way they did. Israel might not have been established in the same way, or at all. The Middle East might have developed differently, without the same post-war interventions. Entire regions of the world would have experienced different political and social evolutions. So, what if Hitler never existed? It's tempting to think the world would be a better place, and in many ways, it might have been. Millions of lives would have been spared. But the world as we know it, the technology, the politics, the culture, would be dramatically different. Some changes might have been for the better, some for the worse, but everything would have shifted. History is fragile like that. One man, one movement, one war can change the course of humanity. The world without Hitler wouldn't just be missing one evil figure, it would be a completely different world. And that's the epic question for today. Keep thinking about the what ifs. Because it's those questions that remind us how interconnected everything really is. And that's a wrap on today's deep dive into the alternate history of Adolf Hitler. We hope this got you thinking about just how different the world could have been. Thank you for tuning in to What If They Never Existed on Quavertv. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our upcoming explorations into history's most fascinating figures. And as always, we appreciate your support. Keep listening, keep questioning, and we'll catch you in the next one.